Hey, so I want to talk a little bit about making change after you step into a new leadership role. I had an interesting conversation the other day. The individual said, "Yeah, I was told wait 6 months before I make any changes." I thought to myself, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever waited that long to make change. So we started discussing a little bit more. And yeah, his discussion was pretty much any change because it's a very established team. But I want to challenge that a little bit, right? There are different factors, right? Very established team, very, let's say, routines of processes and stuff that haven't really changed. Or you're stepping potentially into a role where there's been uh, things that need to change. You're brought in because change is needed, right? So, depending on the factor, it's going to change a little bit on how much you're going to interact as far as making change right out the gate, as I'll call it. But let's just talk about some general things maybe to think about when you step into that new role and hey, do I want to make change right away? So the first I'd say is assessing, right? You get there, you got to assess. So take the necessary time to make some assessment of the situations going on, those processes that are occurring, whatever challenges maybe the teams are facing, or maybe the team dynamics themselves. That time, sometimes you can see it within a matter of days, few weeks, or that might take a couple months. But that's the first piece is assess. But once you start assessing and you've got that idea that I need to make some change, it might be time to start looking at how do I start implementing that sooner than later. I don't have to wait a set number of months. Another consideration is the relationships you're forming with your team, right? Some of that is trust, right? We're trying to gain that trust and open communication with the other members of our team, peers, you know, the organization itself, other stakeholders. So that's another thing in there as you're considering the change is what am I going to do? How am I going to put myself in a place where people trust me when I say I want to make this change? And here's the reason why. Um, that assessment piece, right? Listen and learn. How am I paying attention to what I actually hear? Am I questioning then? Well, what do you mean by that? Wait, okay, what tells us how to do this process? Whatever that is, but it's that learning phase where you're trying to get all the information you can to help you as you decide, do I need to make change? Do I need to make some improvements? The other is I would share is priorities. And this is something I learned a long time ago. We can't change everything at once, right? You may walk into a role and your eyes are just wide open going, oh my goodness, yeah, we're not meeting this requirement. Oh, we're challenged by this. People usually can only handle so much change at a time. It's up to you to decide what I want to start with. One of the things I usually started with was whatever I could get as a quick win. And I'll share in there. So if I heard a lot of individuals on my team were struggling with something that I could help them and fix rather quickly, that was usually my first change because then that trust factor starts to build because they're like, oh, he's listening to us, he's working with us. So that quick win is always helpful in my viewpoint when you're establishing those priorities. And then, hey, when you're going to make change, right, it's time to communicate that vision. What is the change? Why do we want it? Clearly discuss it and how we're going to be acting in the future once we've made that change. Right? The better we can have those individuals trusting us, understanding what this vision is, the more they're going to help make that change occur and really live by that change is what I would call it. Um, so that goes back to hey, the more we can get them on board, right? When we're involving the team in the processes, when we're talking to them, maybe it's a change they want. We're helping to champion it for them, whatever that is. But we're always getting that feedback so that we can help them and we can encourage them to be part of the solution because they've got buy-in at that point. They help own it rather than resist it. And then I would say that that resistance is the next piece. You're going to have some resistance. Change is something that humans don't care to go through a lot of times. But the more you can help them understand the concerns, the reasons, the rationale behind what you want to do, right? And be patient and win them over is what I'll say, the easier it is sometimes to help break that resistance and then involve them and bring them in. The other I would consider in these things you want to make change, What are long-term changes? What are short-term changes? Right? Develop those timelines and keep in mind you don't want to you think, oh, I've got 3 short terms and 3 long terms and let's implement them all at the same time. You might want to be flexible and say, okay, let's do a short term with a long term. However you see it best. But again, it goes back to what's more urgent to you also when you look at it. What's going to help the business the best? So going back to what I started with, right? 6 months. This is what the discussion was. No, I say the goal is to find your needs based on this assessment and then find the balance to take the time, understand the environment you're in, and slowly move forward once you feel comfortable with it. It's not a set in stone hard date. This is about you completing some assessment and deciding where you want to go with it. All right. Reach out if you got any questions. And I know there's going to be some people that disagree with it, and that's fine. We're all different leaders. We all work to different leadership philosophies in there, is what I would say.